The prophet looked toward the heavens and posed the question that would echo through eternity. O Gabriel, you have descended countless times by the command of my Lord. You brought revelations to prophets and commands to angels. But tell me, has there ever been a moment in your life when you used all your strength, spread your wings to their fullest, and descended faster than ever before? The air in the space around them grew still. Not a breeze stirred the ground. Not a bird broke the silence. Gabriel remained motionless. His presence seemed to expand, filling the horizon with a sudden, crushing weight of eons. He did not answer at once. He stood as if listening to a distant rhythm, his focus retreating into the depths of memory. The light around him dimmed, flickering like a candle caught in a draught. The prophet waited, watching the archangel stand at the threshold of a story that spanned the history of the world. Gabriel shifted, his posture straightening as he prepared to speak. The weight of his response was evident in the way the very ground beneath them seemed to hold its breath. Gabriel bowed his head. The movement was slow, deliberate, as if the very air had become thick with the weight of eons. His eyes, usually fixed upon the horizon of the unseen, now looked inward, reflecting the vast, layered history of the cosmos. He did not speak immediately. Instead, he drew a deep, resonant breath that seemed to pull the surrounding atmosphere into a tighter orbit. When he finally looked up, his expression was etched with the gravity of 1,000 missions. He spoke, and his voice carried the resonance of thunder muffled by distance. O messenger of Allah, yes, there were 4 such times. 4 moments when the order reached me and the universe bent to the speed of my wings. He paused, his hands tightening slightly. 4 times when the command to reach a servant of the Almighty pushed me beyond the limits of my own nature. The reverence in his tone made the surrounding space feel fragile. He began to recount the first, his voice steadying as he prepared to unveil the past. The memory was not just a story. It was a reliving of a moment that had defied the laws of existence. The first event took place in a land consumed by tyranny. Nimrod had decreed the end of Abraham. His men gathered wood until the pile reached the height of the trees, a mountain of fuel that blotted out the sun. They ignited it, and the heat became a physical barrier. Birds circling overhead dropped dead. Scorched by the rising air, the pyre was a furnace that turned the horizon into a shimmering, distorted haze. Abraham stood before the catapult, his hands bound with rough rope that bit into his skin. He did not struggle as they forced him onto the wooden cradle. The catapult's beam groaned under the tension. The ropes strained to the snapping point, and the iron gears ground together with a harsh metallic screech. The executioners pulled the release lever with a violent jerk. Abraham was thrown into the air, a small, solitary figure arching through the smoke-choked sky. He tumbled toward the heart of the inferno, the flames licking at the space where he would land in seconds. There was no escape. There was no ground to catch him. Only the roar of the fire and the empty, scorching void waiting to receive him. The command reached me before he had traveled 10 feet. Reach him. The words were a shockwave that tore the clouds apart. I did not fly. I tore through the fabric of the sky, my wings spanning the horizon, burning with a velocity that turned the air into a vacuum. I saw the flames reaching upward, a hungry, roaring wall of gold and crimson. Abraham was a blur in the descent, his eyes fixed on the center of the pyre. I dove, my presence displacing the very wind, pushing the heat back with the sheer force of my passage. I arrived a heartbeat before he crossed the threshold of the inferno. The command echoed again, vibrating through the embers. O fire, be cool and safe for Abraham. The reaction was instantaneous. The roaring orange light collapsed, cooling into a soft, verdant green. The heat vanished, replaced by the scent of damp earth and blooming jasmine. The logs beneath him sprouted leaves, and the stone floor turned to grass. He landed not on coals, but on soft moss. The fire had ceased to be an executioner and had become a sanctuary. Years later, the scene shifted to the dry, sun-baked plains of Egypt. The brothers acted in silence, their movements sharp and calculated. They seized the young boy, Joseph, and dragged him toward the mouth of a disused well. He did not cry out, but his heels dug deep furrows into the sand as they forced him to the edge. With a single, brutal shove, he vanished. The daylight above turned into a shrinking circle of blue, then a pinpoint, then nothing. He plummeted through the throat of the earth, his arms windmilling against the damp, jagged stone walls. The air grew thick, smelling of stagnant water and ancient, undisturbed dust. He hit the bottom with a jarring thud, his breath knocked from his lungs. The darkness was absolute, heavy enough to weigh on his chest. He scrambled to his feet, reaching out, but his fingers met only wet, cold rock. There was no sky, no horizon, and no sound of the world above. He pressed his back against the slime-slicked wall, eyes wide, straining to pierce the blackness. Then the silence fractured. A command rippled through the heavens, vibrating against the stone. "Reach him!" The descent began again, this time from the clouds, faster than the speed of thought. The third trial unfolded on the quiet, barren slope of the mountain. Abraham stood, his hands steady, holding the sharp edge of the blade. Ismail knelt before him, his gaze fixed on the earth, offering his neck in total, silent submission. The air was thin and still, pressing down with the weight of absolute obedience. Abraham raised the steel, the metal catching the harsh midday sun. As the edge touched the skin, the command pierced the atmosphere. "Reach him." I moved faster than the pulse of a heartbeat. The sky blurred into a streak of blinding white light as I descended. The air around the mountain began to roar with the sound of 1,000 rushing winds. I arrived just as the pressure of the blade increased. With one motion, I swept the cold steel aside and placed the ram from paradise between them. The creature stood firmly on the dry earth, its presence filling the space where the knife had been. The tension in the air shattered. Abraham pulled back, his breath ragged, his eyes widening as he looked upon the animal instead of his son. The tradition of sacrifice was born in that heartbeat, a testament to the mercy that arrives when the trial reaches its final, agonizing limit. The vision of the mountain faded, leaving only the soft rustle of wings in the silence. Gabriel bowed his head, his eyes tracing patterns in the dust, as if reading the history of existence itself. He hesitated. For the first time, his voice did not resonate with the steady authority of a messenger. It caught, trembling like a leaf in a gale. He looked up, his gaze intense, pinning the prophet to the spot. "O messenger of Allah, I have stood at the edge of the fire, the bottom of the well, and the sharpest of blades. Yet, none of these trials demanded the speed I summoned for the fourth event." He gripped his staff, his knuckles white, the air in the room growing heavy and cold. He spoke of a day where the very fabric of the sky seemed to groan under the strain of his descent. It was not a mountain or a desert, but a battlefield. The memory seemed to physically drain him, his wings folding tight against his back. The urgency in his tone was absolute, a stark departure from the measured pace of the previous tales. He took a breath, the sound sharp in the stillness, and began to recount the crisis at Uhud. The battlefield at Uhud was a storm of iron and dust. Shouts shattered the air, and the ground shook under the relentless clash of steel. Amidst the chaos, the focus narrowed. A sudden, violent strike broke through the defensive line. The impact was sharp and final. The prophet felt the force of the blow against his cheek, and the sudden stinging heat of metal against bone. His lips split. A tooth was struck, loosened by the force, and the immediate, metallic tang of blood filled his mouth. He staggered, his footing slipping on the uneven, debris-strewn earth. Around him, the battle continued, but for the heavens, time fractured. A single, heavy drop of blood welled up, crimson and bright against the dust. It detached from his skin, gravity claiming it, beginning its slow, inevitable fall toward the earth. The sky above responded with a thunderous, silent vibration. The command tore through the fabric of the firmament. "Reach him, Gabriel." The air turned brittle, charged with the sudden, impossible weight of a world-altering catastrophe. The drop hung in the air, suspended between the violence of the field and the impending silence of a cosmic void. Gabriel moved. He did not fly. He tore through the dimensions. He shattered the arch, ripping through the layers of the heavens like a bolt of white lightning. Every atom of his being screamed with the force of his descent. He breached the atmosphere of the world, a streak of pure light cutting through the smoke and carnage of the battlefield. The drop of blood remained in the air, a tiny, crimson sphere suspended in the chaos. Time slowed to a crawl. Gabriel saw the dust motes dancing around it. He saw the reflection of the sun on its surface. He reached out, his hand moving faster than thought, faster than the wind. His fingers closed the distance, the air whistling as his palm intercepted the trajectory. He caught it. The silence was absolute. The drop rested in his palm, a weight heavier than the stars, safe from the dirt of the earth. The cosmic vibration stopped. The battle raged on, but the catastrophe had been averted. He held the mercy of the worlds in his grip, his breath finally returning as he looked upon the prophet, the danger receding into the past. The celestial light faded, leaving only the sound of the wind across the plains. Gabriel looked toward the horizon, the weight of the moments etched into the history of the heavens. From the cool garden of the fire to the depth of the well, from the sacrifice on the mountain to the blood caught in the air. The pattern was clear. Help did not come after the trial reached its end. It arrived exactly when the threshold was crossed. It was a precision that defied human understanding. The fire cooled before it could burn. The descent reached the well before the bottom was hit. The blade stopped before it touched the skin. These were not coincidences. They were the mechanics of mercy. For those listening, the lesson remains constant. When the trial feels overwhelming and the path forward disappears into shadow, remember the speed of the command. A single word from the Almighty changes the trajectory of reality. You are never abandoned in the midst of your struggle. The intervention you seek is already in motion, arriving at the precise second required. Breathe, stand, and trust in the timing that governs the stars and the dust alike. The story concludes, but the promise holds firm.